And try, there we go. Well, hello everybody, and thank you for coming. We are nearly at the end of our week at Ignite. Hasn't it been great? Yeah. Yes. Party tonight, right? So we're all looking forward to this. And I want to welcome you to our panel discussion. This is this discussion for Outlook for Windows, Mac, and mobile. So without further ado, let me allow the panelists here, our panel of experts, to introduce themselves.
Hey, I'm Vivek. I'm in the Outlook for Mac team.
I'm Kathy. I'm a design manager on Outlook for Windows and Mac.
And I'm Amanda. I'm a PM on the desktop for Windows team.
Hi, Outlook friends. I'm Tali, and I am the PM lead for Outlook for Android.
Hi, I'm Lexi, and I'm a PM on the Outlook mobile team.
And I'm Ross. I'm a PM on the Intune customer experience team, or acceleration team. Shoot, I got to get the name right.
Hello, I am Michael, and I am a PM lead for Outlook for iOS.
Great. Well, this is your opportunity to be asking them questions, but be aware we may actually take the opportunity to ask you a few questions. But there are going to be a few rules. I don't know if you sat in the last session that we had with the Exchange folks as well as Outlook on the web and calendaring, but we are looking for some really good questions. And those that are good questions, you might get a little gift from us. And those good questions are things that may not be specific to your particular organization, or as Greg said in the last session, anything starts with an error code, that wouldn't be a good question. So I'm going to ask for you to think about what would be interesting to more than just your organization or more than just you. So thank you for that. And the other rule is that if you could just limit your question to just one. We have quite a few people in the audience, and so we would like to give it the opportunity to as many people as possible. So we have mics here around the room, so if you can feel free to come to any of those mics, and I will be sort of directing. I also get to be the judge and jury on what is a good question and what's not. And then those, my panelists here will be responding based on the nature of your question. So do we have, pardon me?
We're the Supreme Court.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Probably many of us had the displeasure of working with shared mailboxes in Outlook. And the problem that we've seen, but not only us, is that when there is a cache mode enabled and we have a shared mailbox, moving folders in a shared mailbox, when one user moves it, it's okay, and then the other users don't see this folder moved or any new mail moved to that folder, etc. You have to disable the cached mode, go to online mode, which is very slow, hangs Outlook, etc. So it's really not an option for many of our users, especially finance. And the other solution, going to secondary account, so adding a secondary account is really also not a solution in other ways because authentication, etc. Yeah. Is there a solution coming or not for this particular problem? Removing shared mailboxes is not an option, of course.
Right.
Okay, sorry. It was moving shared mailboxes was the question? The folders within, or?
Folders or mails between folders in the shared mailbox. When it's in cached mode, it tends to disappear for other users.
I see.
It works for the user that moved that, but other users don't see it unless they disable cached mode. Yeah.
So I'm not familiar with the exact pain point that you're bringing up, but I will say that at the moment, it hasn't been something that we've been talking about, so I can't speak to any tangible plans to actually fix that at the moment.
Okay.
Changes on the back end of the shared folders that they were talking about in the online session should fix that problem because now we're storing shared folders locally in each mailbox.
Do we want to get him a mic or so everyone can hear it?
The shared mailbox or the shared calendar folders problems that they were
Not
talking
calendar
about.
folders.
You're talking about mail, not calendar. So if you're familiar with the shared calendar folders that they're talking about, how they're talking about storing those locally in each of them. If you did something like that for all mail folders, you could possibly solve the problem.
Sorry, sir. Can I just add on? I'm also an
question.
expert. I'm also an Outlook person. So just to answer your question, we are making some improvements to how we sync shared mailboxes in cached mode. I don't know about that particular problem and whether that will be addressed. But if you want to give me your contact info, we can touch base after and see if the stuff we're working on fixes that scenario too. So I'll be up here after. Thanks.
Thank you for Jennifer. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jen. We'll just go into the back of the room.
Thanks, everybody.
Hi, I would just like to know when shared mailboxes are going to be available on iOS.
Yay. Okay.
We're working on it. No, really, we are working on it. Tali and I in our session yesterday talked about this. We showed some early designs. We are expecting to have an early preview, probably early 2019, with broad availability, probably in Q2 of next year.
Lovely, thanks.
Thank you.
For one.
So the other rule is that this gets to be fun, and we're going to do a rapid fire around the room, so to keep things moving. So next, thank you.
Thank you for everything you do. First of all, feature requests more than anything. I've got a lot of meetings day to day, and it would be great if Outlook on my phone could gently remind me that I'm actually not in the meeting I'm supposed to be. Like maybe I'm running late by location or some tags that are in different rooms. It'd be great to push me along to my next meeting.
So for Outlook for iOS, we have shipped a feature called Time to Leave. If the invite or the event has a rich location with actual like geo coordinates from Bing, we will notify you if you've turned that feature on. And it's based on transit information, both car and train.
Yeah. So this is more inside the office, right? Different conference rooms, different offices that I need to move between. And maybe a meeting is, you know, we were focusing on the meeting, but it's actually time to go somewhere else. I got the reminder however early I said it, but it should know I'm not in that conference room yet and be a little bit more like it's time to go to the next meeting.
I see. So yeah, I know that the calendar team is working on calendar places and being able to provide more rich data within like an office setting and leveraging some of the data within a building and regarding like conference rooms. I don't know if Julia would speak more to that, but you might want to find her afterwards. But that is something we've definitely talked about. We've also talked about other ways of actually just kind of notifying you and kind of reminding you a little bit differently than just one time and maybe you just miss it. But yeah, it's a great feature request. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Well, and I do want to thank very much because we do listen to our users, and for giving us our suggestion, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, the front of the room.
Yes, hi. I have a question about the size limitations in Outlook. The server mailbox has 100 gigs, and the OST locally has 50 gigabytes. And are there any plans to address this specifically because we have cases where the assistants are supporting several partners with large mailboxes, and we run into issues with Outlook, like performance-wise and synchronization?
We can also have Jennifer answer this one as well.
Oh,
Take it.
you want to give Jennifer another answer?
Come on up.
All right, so actually we've already talked about this briefly, but just for everyone's awareness in the room, the large mailbox issue, especially the mismatch between the cached mode OST size limitation and the Exchange 365 mailbox limitation has been brought up by several customers. I'm currently the PM owner for sync and cached mode in Outlook for Windows, and so it's an action item I've taken to follow up after this conference to try to see if we can make that better for folks. Thanks to everyone who's given us that feedback. It's now on our list, and thank you for the feedback. So
okay,
I actually didn't recognize you until.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like my question goes in a similar direction. Are there any plans, for example, to more advanced customize the cache mode? So, for example, I have a couple of shared mailboxes connected, and I want maybe for that shared mailbox, I want 3 days synchronization. For the other one, maybe a longer period for synchronization. For the other one, I don't want to synchronize this in cache mode at all. Are you going in this kind of direction? Because we hear these requests from a lot of our customers.
That's a great question. We don't currently have that in our plans. As you know, right now we just have the single on-off toggle, whether you want to download shared folders, and that applies to shared mailboxes.
Just on and off currently for the shared
I
mailboxes,
am.
and this is not very well.
Very aware of that. Thank you for the feedback. We don't have that on our roadmap right now. There's one related improvement we're working on, which was mentioned in the Windows session, where we want to start doing smarter sync of calendars. So one of the things is right now cache mode doesn't apply to calendar folders. So even if you're syncing, 1 month of mail, you're still syncing down your whole calendar. And this is true if you're doing caching for shared calendars as well. So that's one improvement that we are working on, to do smarter sync of calendars so that you're not bringing down all of those calendar
I've heard
items.
this morning in the session. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so anyways, that's the one thing we're working on to kind of help with the bringing down shared mailboxes, but we don't have anything more specific planned for, especially not on a per mailbox level right now. But thank you for the feedback. Shared mailboxes, seems like people still use those.
Yes, apparently. In the back of the room?
Yeah, so this is related to mobile and kind of related to the shared mailbox question that was asked earlier. But we have, our executives are mobile only. They only work off iPads. They don't even touch desktops. And their admins are moving in that same direction. So they have delegated access to our managing committee's mailboxes. When will they, on their iPads, be able to get access to those delegated mailboxes so they can work out of their calendar and their executive's calendar?
Go ahead, Michael.
Multi-part question. So shared mailboxes for iPad will come when the iPhone version comes.
Right.
So same date timeline, so early 2019. We support shared calendars today, though. So those delegates.
This is more delegated mailbox, delegated calendar.
Yep. So we support the delegated calendar aspect of it today. So the calendar and shared mailbox functionality is actually two separate features. We support the calendar aspect of it. So in fact, we just shipped this week, 2 days ago, we enabled this in in iOS. You can go to the calendar module, and if you open up the count switcher for the calendar and say add new calendar, you'll see a new option there that says add shared calendar. And they should have access to it if they have permissions. They can look up the principal mailbox owner.
So with shared mailbox, will that also cover, I mean, does delegated mailbox fall into that same window? So that would be Q1 2019's?
Delegated mailbox, yes, that's part of the 2019.
Perfect, thank you.
Any opportunity for us to drive awareness of maybe a feature that folks won't know about deserves a prize. So yes, shared calendars is available on mobile today. Okay, back there.
So congratulations, because Outlook has been such a success on our iOS devices that even though we give them native mail, our users have found out that they can just install Outlook and it works.
Nice.
And we're really excited about that as well. The one thing that we're looking for is the ability to tune performance a little bit, because we've noticed that Outlook has a pretty significant battery drain on their phones, and we'd like to have some options. Maybe there are some options already and we're not aware of them, but looking for some improved battery performance.
Yeah, so our philosophy is we'd rather not ship a bunch of switches and dials and knobs that users or you have to figure out how to tune. That's on us to figure out. So if you're seeing that kind of battery performance issues, please open a ticket right from from one of the devices that you're seeing it, like if the phone's getting hot, for example. Open a support ticket right through the app. That'll collect all the logs. Those logs and that support ticket goes right to in-house support. And so we will get access to that data and we can debug it.
So it's not quite that severe. It's not like phones getting hot, but if you look at consumers of the battery on the device, it's consistently 2 or 3 times high consuming battery than any other app. Not that they're using it 3 times as much as any other app, but it sits in the background and seems to just kind of talk a lot more, so it wakes up the network and consumes a little bit more. Not so bad that it's burning it, but your battery definitely lasts not as long.
Okay, yeah, for more of the slower drain kind of issues, those are a little bit more squirrely to debug and try to investigate. But again, I would say, please open the ticket. That's really what that's our point of view, is to reduce the number of options and settings and really fix the core issue, and that is you should have great battery performance, period.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I have a question on a new Outlook feature, the dark mode. If you could explain a bit about what are the user benefits and what are the reasons why you chose to develop that exact feature.
Apple recently announced dark mode in Mojave, so that's really the kind of the beginning of where we started looking at introducing dark mode in Outlook for Mac. So we are working alongside the rest of the Office for Mac suite of apps in sort of building out dark mode. So from our perspective, really, it's a sort of a deeper tie into the Mac OS theming and dark mode support that Apple's building. And in terms of benefits, on the newer MacBooks, you will see actually better battery performance just because of the displays. I mean, it just reduces eye strain and things like that. Yeah.
I'll say it's starting to be one of the top things we're also getting requests for iOS and Android as well. We just shipped a dark mode in web that's getting a lot of rave reviews, and so I think it's something that you'll start to see across all the Outlook endpoints as people just kind of expect it to be there for their apps.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So using native iOS Mail, and enjoyed a lot of rich alerts that I could configure. We moved to Outlook and got a ding for mail or for a calendar reminder or whatever. So we lost, not only that, we lost, I get a different alert for my team. I can set those in iOS. Can't do that with Outlook. What's the roadmap for a more rich alerting experience with Outlook for iOS?
Me too.
So we currently are working on rethinking our notifications. So iOS 12 released this great feature where you can bundle notifications so that they're relevant to like the context of the thread that they're in or the calendar invite that they came from. So we're in designs right now exploring what we can do. We're aware that our notifications need some work. And then we're also looking into adding like rich content into the notifications. So there's avatars and like more interactive features with them as well.
So is it fair to say that it's an Apple problem that you've got to work around?
Oh, and for VIP, yeah.
Yep, I was going to add on, there's a couple more things you could probably do. One today, per mailbox, I know it's not exactly your question, but per mailbox, and so per mailbox and per calendar, you can set a different noise, alert sound, number one. And number two, we are introducing favorite people. And so if you're familiar in mail.app, VIP, we have a concept of favorites today that you can favorite a folder or a group. We are getting close to ship a favorite people aspect of that. And when we ship that, we will then also allow you the ability to turn off all notifications except for your favorite people.
So I've kind of done some of that stuff with Flow as a workaround. Turn off all my alerts, use my favorites in Flow to get an alert on my Apple Watch. And it seems to work, but I want that calendar, like you're late for a meeting, that kind of stuff.
So we push notifications to the watch too.
Correct. Turn them all off for Outlook. Use Flow.
Okay. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm missing what you're asking for in terms of like. So we got favorite people coming, which is like VIPs.
Correct. Good.
Okay. What else?
I'm just saying. I'm just sharing with the group that using Flow has been my workaround. It works pretty good. Seems like there's some limitations there as well, but it's an option.
Okay. Well, hopefully you won't have to use that when we ship our latest notifications.
Yeah. Coming soon. Thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, we'll move to the back of the room.
Thank you. What thought have you guys put into helping users diagnose why Outlook is performing badly, especially on the desktop? There's a lot of ways that people can shoot themselves in the foot, adding 1 billion mailboxes or 1,000 folders or gigantic OST files. Right now, all the performance information is put into log files that only Premiere can debug. What can we do to help people fix their own problems?
So a couple things on that. So as far as like add-ins that you were mentioning, we're doing a lot of work right now so that the client can recognize when add-ins are causing problems and to notify the users of what it actually is causing the slowdown so they're able to self-identify and turn those off. And we understand that those are a little touchy depending on the environment and what add-ins like the admins want to have running. So there are overrides where if there's something that you know causes a performance issue, you can specifically override that one's going to remain live and not notify the users at all. We've also got we're studying this closely to figure out the right experience for this, but putting like a 30-day snooze on it. Maybe there was a bug in this add-in and it'll get fixed. And so that we don't permanently put them in some disabled thing and then the admins are wanting or expecting something to be on that's not. So there's been a lot of focus on the performance around add-ins because we found that a lot of the perceived slowness was because of add-ins that were added after the fact, right? As far as self-diagnosing, we haven't taken a lot of steps to give the users the ability to diagnose things themselves beyond the add-ins necessarily. But we are right now working on, we have something that will be coming to everybody on the monthly channel in a few months, but an ability to basically get all the logs of what's happening and to forward those up so that even if you're talking to non-Premier, any customer service agent that you're talking to would be able to get the set of logs that will help them diagnose those problems. It's not a self-diagnosis thing, and we're not giving sort of, keywords and being able to search through it in some user-readable way, but we're hoping that this will help us to get those tickets to move faster so that people can find those environmentally specific things that are slowing down their performance.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And that's helpful, but again, there's a lot of wasted time for people to get us information, and then we have to forward it on, and sometimes they're hard to reproduce. And so having the logs are good, but there's a lot of places in Outlook people can cause their own performance problems. Like I said, add-ins is one thing, and the thing that you have actually works pretty well, but for users that add, 37 shared mailboxes, or, we heard before with all these admin delegated calendars, or gigantic OST files with a slow hard drive, or Outlook's freezing because it's trying to look up FreeBusy and it has a network issue of some kind. Just more UI that would help people know that it's something in the environment versus Microsoft's fault.
So you're looking for some in-app feedback when things go sideways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your network seems to be slow, or whatever.
Thank you. That's really good feedback.
So specifically on that, in this place where you will submit the logs to create those packages for customer service, it will analyze those, and when we detect that we know something like that, we will tell the user. It's not going to be a proactive thing like, hey, by the way, we see that you've got this scenario in your network, but if you go in there and you indicate you're having a problem, those messages, if we know them and can diagnose them, will surface.
Okay.
Thank you. We're just going to ask one question here to get a little bit of opportunity to ask you. Do you guys know when Outlook was quote unquote born? What year?
95.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We had 97 because of the aged backwards, but thank you. Okay. Back of the room.
I was wondering, is there a future plan or any current way actually to modify like rules or advanced settings for mailboxes or shared accounts that you have full access to, basically? They appear in your Outlook, or you can set them up on Outlook for Mac and stuff, but advanced options, specifically rules, would be nice built into the client instead of going to the web portal.
Which endpoint?
I guess Outlook for PC would be the best.
I think this would apply, I guess, across the board. I don't know of any plans for that at all. It's an interesting ask, though, and something we could think about, but at this point, it's not something we've been looking at or it's on our roadmap.
Okay. So currently, it's just going to the web portal, going to the settings there for that mailbox, and then you can make settings changes. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Hello, I have a question about focused in the inbox. When I disable that on an entire organization, I get a pop-up in Outlook for Windows that says your administrator has made a change to the environment. You can undo the change by clicking enable, and then they do that. So we have to send out communication to all the users. And the last customer I did, we hit 60,000 PCs that got this pop-up, and then we were stuck back at.
So we're not aware of any way to suppress it. We were talking about this before too. It's an interesting thing, and I don't know, to be completely honest, I don't know whether it's a technical thing that requires it to have to do that, or whether we could silently put it out and then the next restart to pick up the setting. It's interesting feedback knowing that it is causing such a difficult point, so we'll take that back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So will tasks and notes ever come to Outlook for iOS?
So we are aware of the ask. Yeah, we're actually working closely with the task team. A couple parts to this. One is ensuring that the To-Do app, which is already on iOS, is fully compliant and it's already built on top of the task fabric. So if you set up tasks in an Outlook endpoint like Windows or Mac, those are part of the service, and so they will show up in the To-Do app. For now, that is the on-the-go solution for us. So we say, manage your tasks in the To-Do app. We are working really closely with the To-Do team for some simple integration points that feel really natural in the Outlook endpoint, specifically iOS and Android. We're not, our goal is not to, rebuild the To-Do app in our app. They've got a phenomenal app that is a standalone app, but there are some there's some ripe integration opportunities that we absolutely are looking at and planning on doing.
Just to add to that, so they are also looking at what the right experience is for flagged emails, which today would show up in your desktop task module, and currently I don't think show up in to-dos, and they're trying to figure out how to make those show up as well, and should they look different, et cetera. They are also Intune managed now, so it's a secure solution that you can use. The OneNote team, similarly, is looking at how they can pick up Exchange tasks, or Exchange notes, rather, so that they can just pull those directly into OneNote. And as far as I know, they are really close to having that dog foodable. So that's kind of our plan. And again, we're just looking at what the right connections are to make to complete the scenario without trying to make Outlook Mobile be overwhelmed by notes and task scenarios. We want them to specialize.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Thank you. Oh, thank you. In the back of the room? Thanks.
Good afternoon. I have a question on recurring meetings. I work at a company, about 75,000 people who recently migrated to Outlook, recently last year. One thing we've realized, moving from Lotus Notes to Outlook, is that our admins really miss the functionality to have a custom recurring meeting series. So I'm curious, first of all, I'm not missing anything, right? There's not a way to do custom dates. The message we've always been told is, use the logic to do your cadence as close as possible and then adjust those periods on which you need to be close. But again, our admins, seeing as they've been able to do that for the last 25 years plus years, very much miss that functionality. Is that something that has been addressed, or is there a reason why the functionality isn't in Outlook?
Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about Outlook for Windows?
Yes.
Okay. We have our calendaring experts right here as well. So Julia or Jennifer, do you want to address that?
Okay, hello. So you're not missing anything. There's no support for what we're calling non-pattern recurrence in Outlook and on any of the endpoints, both on-prem and in the cloud. It's just not something that we've ever supported for the calendar items. This is something that has been kind of bubbling up on user voice. We have a few higher priority recurring series fixes, which we've been talking about at this conference, like we want to let people cancel a meeting from this day forward and so forth. And those have been a little bit more popular on user voice. There's two things. One is we've kind of been working on a few other higher priority fixes, but we'd love for you and other of your users who are asking for this functionality to kind of upvote that so we can kind of take that input into account. It's definitely on our list, but as of now, we don't even have like a technical plan as to how we would support these non-pattern recurrences, but it's something that's kind of on our list, but not yet started.
Okay.
That's kind of honestly where we're at. But thank you for the feedback.
And I will say I attended your session earlier, and there are a lot of great things that you guys are doing. So I was very excited to hear a lot of those things, but the recurring meeting, custom recurring meetings is one thing I didn't hear about. So.
Wish I could say, oh yeah, that already works. So that's not
too.
right. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
We get another opportunity to ask you a question. So does anybody know how many countries we actually develop Outlook in, where our dev teams might be located?
11.
Okay. Well, any more? It's not that big. It's a little smaller than that, but the answer is 5. So, yeah. Who said 6? I don't count.
He said 4. He said 4. I think that's a.
You said 4?
Yes.
Okay. We'll keep going around and I'll get you something. Thank you for your. I think we're back over here.
Yeah, hi. So with everything kind of going to Teams lately, obviously there's calendar integration, but what about email, tasks, all that other stuff from Outlook? Is it eventually going to Teams and it's just a matter of time where Outlook will stay separate, or kind of what are your guys' thoughts or theories or whatever?
like to take that. Stella, did you want to take that one? Or do
Great. Okay.
Yeah. Hi, I also am part of Outlook team. It's really for tall people. Okay, so the question was, if I understand correctly, so are some components of Outlook going to Teams, right? That's the question. So the way we think about that is, as people communicate more, they use both Outlook and Teams and other tools more. And we have a lot of loyal users who are very used to the way we do things in Outlook. Of course, we always improve. So short answer is, no, we're not going to take functionality, not that I know of, or anybody here knows of, from Outlook and move it to Teams. We'll likely evolve Teams, we'll continue to evolve Outlook, but Outlook will continue to be the tool you know and love.
Okay. Thanks.
We have a taller person, so we'll just adjust the mic. Again, go ahead.
Okay, I have a question regarding Outlook and saving files. Today you can save files to, if you have attachments in the mail, you can save it to a disk or you can save it to your OneDrive. How about Teams? If I try to save it, I can see it when I try to save to in Outlook, and then I can see my team, but it goes on top of the document folder, which is visible in Teams. So I cannot see it in Teams, I can only see it in SharePoint. Is that something being worked on?
We are working on Teams integration to at least enable Teams meetings, which is the first step and the thing that we hear most frequently. So that's coming by the end of the year for all the Outlook endpoints. So you'll be able to create a Teams meeting. I don't think that there's currently any plan to support, any plan that's already, like set on our roadmap to support Teams files integration, but as the Teams product takes off, we're going to be continuing to look at all the different integration points that we need to have to make sure that you have a fluid experience as you're moving back and forth between the products.
Good. That's good, thanks. Yeah. Go ahead.
Outlook Mobile and Intune. Can we get a feature to add multiple Intune managed profiles on a single mobile device?
So that is on our backlog from an Intune SDK perspective to support. Now, the good news is because of what we're doing and how we're building shared mailbox and delegate mailbox folder access and the fact that we already support shared and delegate calendar is that that scenario will just work without any enhancements to the Intune SDK. But the ability to add 2 managed accounts separately with 2 separate identities, that's a scenario that isn't supported today, but is something on the backlog.
I'm going further. I'm saying even 2 tenants.
Yeah, so that's the other scenario. So there's 2 specific scenarios. I want the ability to have a single tenant and support 2 different identities, which is typically the ask around that was for the shared mailbox scenario, which we're solving that through actually using the actual permission model.
Yeah.
The second scenario is I want to have 2 different tenants for, I'm a what we refer to as a contractor scenario. I'm a contractor, I need to have my own email and I need to access my customer's work email. That's the scenario the Intune team still has on their backlog to address and add support for, but we don't have a date to provide at this time. But we are interested in doing it.
Yeah, and we've definitely heard it from a number of customers, plus they hear it from me and Michael because we want to be able to add multiple mailboxes as well.
That was a good question, and thank you for your advice earlier to some of the other attendees, so thank you very much. Go to the back of the room. Thanks.
Hi there. Before I ask my question, I just wanted to mention that the To-Do app still isn't an enlightened app that supports app protection policies, so I was just hoping you could mention that to the To-Do team.
Yeah, that's correct. It is scheduled for release very shortly.
Fantastic.
Imminently.
Thank you. And my question is related to the Outlook mobile app and then the Outlook browser application. It seems that the timeout policy applies to both of those use cases. So our security team requires in the browser to log out after about 8 hours or so, in case you're in a library or something. But that timeout setting also applies to the Outlook mobile app. So our users that are using Outlook mobile app on trusted devices, if they don't check their inbox every 8 hours, they get signed out and then they have to go back in.
I think that's a sign they should be checking their email every 8 hours, right?
Well, a lot of us.
Are we right?
A lot of us do, but some of us put our phone down on the weekends.
I'm just kidding.
Right. So I'm wondering, is that something that I should be asking you guys for help with, or is that something that's more of like an AD problem? Where that setting is like, I don't think.
So that has to do entirely. There's two potential scenarios depending on what your environmental configuration is. There's what is the timeout setting for multi-factor authentication?
That's what I believe I'm referring to.
And then there is the OAuth lifecycle. By default, the OAuth lifecycle for an access token is 1 hour. The refresh token is 14 days, if I remember correctly, and the access token can be refreshed up to 90 days through the refresh token before credentials have to be passed again. So it's most likely the MFA setting. They should totally increase the timeout for the MFA setting. 8 hours is.
Right, but you know, if we go to like a library or something and sign in, and somebody leaves the desk or something, you know, we want that to shut down after 8 hours. That's our security ask. But like for a mobile phone, you know, we don't need it to sign out at all. So
I mean, it should be separated. And
yeah,
my personal opinion is I wouldn't allow the web browser access from kiosk type of scenarios because that is totally a security vulnerability.
Is there a way to separate the two settings at all, or is it because the browser-based and mobile app is basically the same kind of backend that there's really not going to be any kind of way to separate those settings?
So there's actually a setting on for OAuth, it's the activity timeout that you would actually want to set, which would be completely different than any of the actual MFA policies. And that will only be dependent on just affect OAuth, and it won't impact the mobile apps. And actually, you can go from as low as 5 minutes up to 24 hours. And that's actually the setting that I would recommend to make sure that if you want to decrease the time for the kiosk scenario.
The other thing I will ping is sign-in risk for conditional access. And using only MFA under certain scenarios like mobile when the risk is considered, there's a potential risk. And then for other scenarios like browsing based, when you're going to allow it on a kiosk type of scenario where you enforce MFA all the time, you separate the two scenarios out to reduce the impact on more controlled devices.
Yep, we do that. Yep. I'll look into OAuth. Thanks.
Next person in the back.
Oh, thank you. One quick question, and maybe this will help out the gentleman in the back about troubleshooting of the Outlook client stuff, but we use the OffCat tool, or the Office Support Resolution System, whatever the new name is, pretty extensively with our shared mailboxes and our admins that we're having problems with troubleshooting stuff. But one kind of, I don't know if it's a feature request, enhancement, whatever, but one problem we have when we're running those tools is it just focuses on the primary mailbox that we're connected to, because it is client-based. It's not, doesn't focus really on the other shared mailbox, so we end up doing lots of running around, and especially in a mailbox, in a scenario where the shared mailbox isn't a user mailbox, we don't get good results out of that tool really on troubleshooting those. And it does have some great features in it. I love the tool. I'd recommend highly the gentleman back there using it if you're not using it.
It's great feedback. We'll take that back.
Thanks. Front of the room here.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about search improvements, and especially as they're going to go through and search contacts? There's a lot of pain points around just searching within Outlook.
Any specific endpoint?
Desktop.
Okay.
So, as you spoke about earlier, I don't know if you're in an earlier
On the
session.
Mac, probably most.
Sorry?
And on the Mac, but mostly Mac Outlook.
I see. Our whole team is actually very invested in search, and we've been making a number of improvements. And one of those things is being able to search through contacts, and including like documents and attachments and everything coming into search. But these are just features that we'll be phasing in over time.
Vivek, did you want to add anything more for Mac?
And
so on the Mac front, we are invested in search too, as Amanda said, and we are rolling out improvements over time. So we actually have local search suggestions that's rolling out in Q4. And we are, so on the Mac client, there's local search, which is actually Apple Spotlight search indexer that works in the background. So we've made investments in kind of improving our interaction with the Spotlight search indexer, so that's improved. And then longer term, we are looking at sort of improving the online search experience, kind of aligning with the rest of the endpoints and improving online search. So that's going to come later.
And just to plug for my Exchange roots, the way to think about this is there's two scenarios. There's the client-side implementation, how we execute and how we return the result set and what we do with it. And then there's the server-side execution piece. We've just done a tremendous amount of work both in Exchange Online and what we're shipping in Exchange 2019 to optimize the search experience. We've removed the separate index catalog that we used to leverage from FAST. We've now integrated Bing search index into the mailbox database store architecture itself to optimize and improve the efficiency, as well as leverage some optional features like the Metacache database to help optimize search query results. And coupled with that and the enhancements we're building in the clients, that should improve the experience drastically.
Thank you.
We use moderated mailboxes or distribution groups so that, you know, employees aren't mailing everyone my free cat emails or whatever. There's no option in the Outlook for iOS to approve those messages, or it used to be in the OWA app you could do it, and you'd have to flip over to that to take care of that. Is there any?
It's something we've heard a few times. I can count probably on 3 fingers, being the third. It's not something that comes up very often, but we're aware of the ask. In fact, we've got a DCR filed. It's actually assigned to me, so we're evaluating it. But I don't have any announcements or ETA today.
While the OA on the web app is no longer available, they certainly can go to the browser and go log into OA and do it from there. There's been a lot of work to the mobile browser version of OA that will show in your phone so that it's getting the new experiences and the new awesome stuff that's going on in OA. So it's a great backup if there's something specific that you need until we're able to get to it in the native app or in the iOS app.
Thank you.
Just to tag on that, since we didn't mention that earlier, for those that are blocked today on Outlook for iOS and Android from using shared or delegate mailbox folder access, you can use OA and the mobile browser to solve that problem in the short term. It's not obviously the most optimal experience to switch between mobile and the web browser for that, but you can set up through app protection policies to ensure that the data is secure and protected in both experiences to mitigate that concern until we deliver the feature set.
Back?
Calendar search in mobile?
Yes.
I demoed it yesterday. So go check out the session that Michael and I did on Outlook Mobile for the Enterprise. It's up on YouTube. And you can see that I was demoing calendar search on Android. It's going to be, we're still working on it. It's still in our dev build, but it's working. And we have a few more tweaks and things to make, and then we'll be rolling it out. We are also starting the process on iOS, so it will be coming soon.
So end of year, I mean, how ballpark?
I think we're saying Q1. And my boss got really mad at me for promising too many things yesterday, so I'm going to stick with that. But it's looking great, and it's super fast, and it's been really fun to use. So we're really excited to get it out to you guys.
Thank you.
There is on Tech Community, with Microsoft Tech Community, we do put out blogs, and we did actually on Tech Community and on the Microsoft 365 blogs make an announcement around Outlook Mobile, and that was one of the features that we pre-announced this week. So thank you for bringing that up. Go ahead.
So malicious external users using the names of our executives and then sending emails is on the rise, right? And they, putting aside the email perhaps not getting delivered, let's pretend it does, or things that we're doing for any external email, seems, things that seem to be popular are adding like the word external to the subject line to help flag our users that this is an external email, or certainly something at the header or the footer. Question is, what's the best way to help a user realize that an email is being sent to them externally? And if adding that part to the subject line is part of the solution, it throws off the threading, obviously, for a conversation view.
Yeah, so there's a few things we've done in that area over time. First and foremost, we don't resolve the address, so when they open the mail, it resolves as an external address, which is a user education concern to actually convince them. The other thing we've done in Exchange Online threat protection is we now add a notification bar to the email that indicates that this user is not someone you frequently access and may be external, which highlights the fact that something's up and is illegitimate about that potential email. And then, of course, there are things that you could do around transport rules and DLP-related things if you wanted to get extremely crafty to add something, like you said, an external indicator on the message. But our focus has been on notification bar experiences.
Yeah, 'cause part
across
of the problem is,
platforms.
even in your Outlook view, you see the name but not the email address. And you're, especially with people with.
That's why we invested in the notification bar, to show that up in the preview.
So then is there a way, if you did configure something to be added in the subject, that it could be removed when the threading conversation occurs so that, for example, when I send you an email, it's going to have the normal subject line. When you reply back to me, it's going to say external on the front part of it. And now because the subject is different, it puts it in 2 different conversation threads.
I'm not aware of anything on that.
So we are going to have to wrap it up. Actually, I was just noting the time, and we're at the time. We are going to be here for a few more minutes afterwards. And again, I really, really want to thank you for coming down at the end of the day, near the end of Ignite. It's been a real pleasure to speak with all of you, and we hope to see you all soon. So, yes. Yes, thank you very much.